On behalf of the Corporate Laws and the Corporate Governance Committee of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, I take great pleasure in extending a very, very warm and a very hearty welcome to all of you to this series, which is called the Manthan series. This is an initiative of the Corporate Laws and Corporate Governance Committee of ICAI, of which I'm the chairperson, and my name is Shri Priya Kumar, and I'd be sort of handling the panel discussion today. Also have with us C.A. Raj Chawla, who is an elected member from the northern region. I'm from the southern region, and we're part of the Central Council together. We have C.A. Sunil Garg from Delhi, C.A. Praveen Sharma ji again from Delhi. We have C.A. Ajay Upadhyay from the western region, Mumbai. And we also have with us another very distinguished invitee, C.A. Anil Sharma ji, who's also a part-time member of the National Financial Reporting Authority. And the views here are, of course, personal, and he's here to share with us. So Manthan actually is a Sanskrit term which means to churn, to delve, to dig deep. And there is obviously a mythological reference to it, which is the churning of the mountain, which I'll come into from the next part of my presentation. But this is a series where we are not going to stick to this law or that law, but we're going to talk about MANTHAN, 7 important topics that I think are very relevant in forming an opinion for this country. So in terms of where we see ourselves in these 7 domains that we want to talk about, and it's going to be a series of 7 webinars spread over 7 weeks, where we will try and bring you very, very distinguished persons. And of course, you can put in some of your questions also on the chat. These are not intended to be technical webinars. So we're not going to talk about a GSTR form or an income tax form, but broadly where we see ourselves in the nation building process. And the participants in this session would, of course, be chartered accountants because it's being hosted by ICAI. We're also expecting participation from non-chartered accountants because this is an open event. And in the past webinars, we've seen other stakeholders from the government, from the industry, from CAs in industry, practice, other practicing professionals, etc. We'll be very happy to also take questions which you may put on your chat. Before I commence this session, I would like to invite C.A. Raj Chawla, who's the member from the northern region, sitting council member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, to speak a few words. And in terms of Rajbhai's introduction, he's a fellow member and he's a triplet. One of the few in the council, a member of the CA Institute, the CWA Institute, and the Institute of the Company Secretaries of India. He's a law graduate and has been practicing as a CA since 1992, and that's many, many years now. He's elected to the Central Council for 22-25, and he was previously the Northern India Regional Council Chairman during 15-16, and also a very, very active member of the Delhi Management Association, Rotary Club of Delhi, and other NGOs such as the Krishna Sant Foundation. Presently, he's a member of various committees of ICAI, including the Board of Discipline. He's also the Vice Chairperson of the Committee for Members in Industry and Business, the Direct Taxes Committee, and the Committee on MSME and Startups. And in this, I must add a small personal word. In all these committees, he performs exemplarily well. Notable, which I have been very closely observing, is the Committee on MSMEs and Startups. And I'm very proud to let you know that ICAI is now running the MSME Yatra to sort of propagate awareness of MSMEs right across the country. And we're actually having a roadshow. A very literal roadshow when we have a truck that's flying across, a bus that's flying across the country. And Rajbhai has been almost there in every single branch in the northern region, which I think is a phenomenal achievement. He's also been the vice chairperson of the Direct Taxes Committee. And after a long time, we have a new guidance note on tax audit, a very, very well-written document. And again, we're partnering with the CMIB committee from the Women Members Empowerment Committee. And we're launching the first ever women placement program for flexi, part-time, and work from home for non-COP holders, women, because we think there's a huge space for flexi staffing for women. So in all these initiatives, Rajbhai has played a very, very huge role. And now it's over to Raj. Thank you, Raji, for being present here.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your kind words. Good afternoon to all. First of all, I am thankful to the Corporate Law and Corporate Governance Committee of our ICI and the chairperson, CA Sri Priya Kumarji from Chennai. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. And today, the starting of this Manthan, and I am very lucky that the first M, managing changes, emerging regulatory environment, compliances by entities, compliance by auditors. This topic, I am also part of this topic. And I also welcome our panelist, CA Anil Sharma ji, CA Ajay Upadhyay ji, CA Praveen Sharma ji, and CA Sunil Garg ji in this panel discussion today. And our today questions for this panel discussions will be, does India Inc. understand regulatory compliances, small, medium, or large? What are the key changes to watch out for? Why do such changes happen in the relevant laws? Does this result in ease of doing business? It has the same impact of large or small organization. Is this right? How should organization be prepared for the changes? Does this cast an onerous responsibility on auditors? How can auditor handle these changes? Should ICI also support an automated compliance tracker for the benefit of CAs? Will this strengthen the hand of CA in their attest function? How can law be simplified further? So these are the topics or questions which we will cover today. And really this today discussion is going to be very beneficial to all the chartered accountant, because in this changing scenario, in these days we are looking, and rather I am in the board of discipline, and we are seeing that many professionals are facing this disciplinary action due to this non-compliance of the statutes. So with this, I am thankful to this committee for being part of this discussion. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, so thank you very, very much, Rajbhai. And in terms of Manthan itself, as I had mentioned, this is going to be a series of topics. And just to take you back to the story of Manthan, the word derives its origin from the Samudra Manthan. So just as how there were different elements that were involved in churning the ocean, it's a very old story. There were the Devas, the Asuras, there was Vasuki the snake, there was Vishnu who came in the form of a tortoise. There was a poison that got liberated, and then there was Shiva who actually consumed it and held it in his throat and became blue. And there are many, many stories of the Mohini avatar of Krishna. So very typically when you have a debate or a discourse of the kind that we are having now, we expect a lot of thoughts to emerge. And I'm going to request the secretary of the committee, Sarika Singhal, who's been, sort of terrific in organizing this program and this entire series, to make some notes so that we could sort of upfront it to the MCA or the relevant ministries on whatever we think are, aspects that we need to upfront or take to the government. So before I start on this session, and this is a session on basically managing compliances. Managing compliances in what I think are very, very turbulent times today. It's difficult for the government, it's difficult for the regulators, it's difficult for the corporates, and above all, it's very, very difficult for the auditors. So how do we navigate this very, very complex landscape? And that's going to be the theme of Manthan edition 1 today. So before I proceed, I'm truly privileged to introduce our panelists for the day. Start with CA Anil Sharma ji. He's a practicing chartered accountant with more than 35 years of experience and participated as a special invitee to the NACAS, which is the National Advisory Committee on Accounting Standards under the MCA. And he's been a reviewer and a faculty with the FRRB of ICI. He was also a former member of the MCA Committee on CARO 2003, co-authored the Corporate Anti-Bribery Code book, which was issued by ICSI. He's an independent director and has been on the board of various reputed companies. He's also been invited as a faculty. He's a regular resource person with the IICA, the ICLS Academy, the SFIO, large public sector enterprises such as ONGC, etc. He's also been a co-opted member and a special invitee on various committees of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. And he's presently also serving as a part-time member of the National Financial Reporting Authority, the the super regulator that's been created recently.
Thank you very much.
Welcome, Anilji. Welcome. The next I move on to say Ajay Upadhyay. Ajay is here, and Anil Sharma ji would specially present his perspective on corporate and other laws, of which he's a specialist. And in this discussion, we're just not going to talk about corporates. We're going to talk about NGO compliances. We're going to talk about the entire landscape of compliance in this country. I then move on to say Ajay Upadhyay. Ajay is a chartered accountant with over 18 years of professional experience in what's a very, premium space, if I may use the term. It's forensic investigations, financial crime investigations, antitrust, regulatory, dispute services, risk advisory services, and internal audits across various sectors. Involved in more than 400 investigations in his career, leading cases around the topics that we spoke about, including litigation, arbitration, financial statement frauds, anti-bribery matters, etc. And he's presently with AZB Partners. And welcome, Ajay ji, and welcome, and look forward to your inputs. The next we move to CA Praveen Sharma ji. He's a CA, BCom, he's an MCom, an FCA, a diploma in IFRS from ACCA. He's also he's been a special invitee of the Indirect Taxes Committee of ICAI, and he's also a certified independent director. He's going to basically, in fact, a very interesting thing about CA Praveen Sharma is that he runs a Telegram channel where more than 7,000 members are present, and queries, assistance, guidance is all resolved in one place. He's a faculty of indirect taxes for the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, delivered more than 500 webinars on various platforms of ICAI and taxpayers associations, authored many articles on Tax Guru, Taxman, Tax Sutra, GST Mitra, CA Club, etc. And he's a very, very active resource person who spends a lot of his time working with the rest of the, the spectrum to educate all of us. Also have with us, so he would largely address all the panel questions and discussions that we have on the indirect taxes space. Next, I proceed to introduce CA Sunil Garg. He qualified as a chartered accountant in 1992. He's been practicing in taxation, auditing, advisory services, risk management, cross-border transactions, etc. He's a partner with Sunil Suresh and Associates and have offices in Gurugram, Delhi, and Faridabad. He's also, just like all other panelists, a very, very active member in various industrial and professional bodies like the PhD Chamber of Commerce and Industry, the Faridabad Chamber of Commerce, Laghu Udyog Bharti, and also a governing member, a member of the governing body of many educational bodies. He's also been appointed as a special invitee to the Direct Taxes Committee of ICAI in the present council. So I'm sure he's also participated in the guidance note on tax audits that we've come up with recently. So it's over to the panel now, and most importantly, thank you to each one of you in this audience here today. And through this act of Manthan, we're hoping to make some meaningful contributions and possibly awaken our third eye to what we could do better for this country. So, and in terms of commencing our questions for the day, and Sarika, you may please inform me if any other questions are coming, so you could put it either on this chat or by a mail.
Yeah, sure, ma'am.
So the first question I'd like to sort of throw open to this panel, and in the order in which I'd like to call out is, do you really think India, the enterprises in India, understand the importance of regulatory compliance? And I'd like to start with, say, Anil Sharma. So does India really understand? What do you think is the present level of compliance?
Yeah, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to be part of this Manthan. It's a very good initiative you have started. So coming to the question which you have raised to me, frankly speaking, when we talk about India Inc., I think we have to first look at the structure of India Inc. as a whole. Very rightly in the question itself, it is mentioned small, medium, and large. So understanding regulatory compliances, so far as larger companies are concerned, they are equipped with that. Whereas other small and medium companies, they totally rely on professionals like chartered accountants to guide them, to in fact not only guide them, somewhere they actually ask chartered accountants to ensure that all compliances on their part are taken care of. So quickly, answer to your question is that we can't take India Inc. as a whole. We have to see this issue by dividing that into small, medium, and large. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And Praveenji, what is your take on the GST space, the indirect taxes space? Do people understand, appreciate why they need to comply? You could unmute yourself.
Thank you, ma'am, and thank you for the Corporate Governance Committee for giving me an opportunity to discuss about another hot topic nowadays, the GST. So when the GST came in July 2017, it becomes an easy for each and every person, to the entity and to the auditor, that it's almost a simple return, simple thing, simple returns will be processed. But on the way forward, compliances are increasing day by day. Every business entity, regardless of its organization form, its size, who owns it, what business it is in, or how successful it is subject to at least some compliance requirements. That whenever any laws and rules affect your business, it will vary depending on wherever you are located and the particular business entity you pick to structure your company. So artificial intelligence has come, business analytics has come, DGGI plays a major role in taking and indulging in the fake invoices. So business entity are still learning the GST compliances, still the chartered accountant also learning the GST compliances, how to improve it. It basically the phase we have to check, and the entity still the 90 or I think 80% entity are still under non-compliance of the GST. We are still facing many issues nowadays on a daily basis, that this return has not filed, this compliance has not done, many forms are there, many returns are there, but still the learning to be continued.
Thank you, Praveenji. So your assessment is again not too high. Sunil Gargji, what is your take on income tax, which is the biggest law that impacts all of us? So.
Thank you, madam. And of course, it's a great initiative, Manthan, and taken from Samundra Manthan. The question is whether India Inc. understands these changes, and another is all industry understand in the same way, small, medium, and large. Let me give you 2-3 examples. See, this year, clause 44 in Form 3CD has been introduced. Now you have to report in clause 44. There was a lot of confusions, how to report, and still we are struggling. The auditors are struggling to how to report that 44 clause. Secondly, government all of a sudden changed the system of charitable trust, assessment and registration of charitable trust. You change the system immediately, and with retrospective effect, the changes were made applicable for the financial year 21-22. Now, it is a very difficult thing, at least for the small industry. Large industry, they have the infrastructure, they understand, and they have the preparation for the changes. But small and medium industry, which are the backbone, which is the backbone of the Indian industry, they find it very difficult to cope up with the speed. The speed which the government want to change themselves, they don't find it compatible with those changes. Similar happening with the clause 30 GAR provisions. Now, can you understand our auditor of a small firm or a medium industry, they can understand, they can comply with all the provisions? What I mean to say, when a government is coming with the changes, compliance changes, because compliances are increasing day by day, what we should do, we should first educate. The government should give proper time to implement those changes, because otherwise large industry, they may cope up with the changes, but For small and medium industry, it is very difficult, and that may lead to a lot of penalties, lot of harassment. That's my take.
Yes, sir. Thank you very, very much. And I must especially thank you for all the three having made your submissions very brief, and this is way to go. So it's very nice. And could I now request Raj Chawla ji to speak a few words? I mean, what's your take on this? And I'm coming to Ajay at the last because I have to modify the question slightly. So, but otherwise the question for Raj stands.
Very rightly said by C. Anil Sharma ji that these large entities have their compliance officer and chartered accountants for their regular compliance. But when we talk about this small and medium, they all dependent on the auditor. They expect that whosoever is the auditor, he will take care all the compliances. So this is a very problem. Although they don't pay that much of fees to the auditor, so how an auditor can comply all the requirements which are under income tax, under audit, under GST and other allied laws? So it is very difficult. So they expect that whosoever is auditing our accounts, he will take care of all the compliances. So this is a very difficult. And is in this changing scenario, they have to give extra money to the auditor or some other chartered accountants who will take care of their compliances. Thank you.
Yes, Rajbhai. In fact, this is something that we'll come back to later, because I think while the compliance in the country has increased, the fee payable for such compliance is not increased. I mean, the market really hasn't understood that compliance is a management function and audit is an audit function. Thank you very much. And Sunilji, yes, I agree. I mean, I think the key point that you highlighted was that the changes are too fast, too many, and not enough time for the small and medium enterprises to actually cope. In fact, we can even come back to this, but I think there was, for these Nidhi companies, they had something called NDH4 that was brought in. And a lot of just didn't even know what to do. And then a lot of their pass-3 allotment and SH4s got blocked. SH7, I think, got blocked. And yeah, I tend to agree with that. And coming to Ajay now. Ajay, do you think this country understands fraud risks? Do means justify ends? And it's right across the spectrum. Today, and in my question to you, we're talking about frauds by everybody. I mean, do people understand the consequences of frauds, whether it's a misreporting or whether it is a diversion of funds? Do bankers understand frauds? What's your take? What do you think is the level of awareness in this country?
Sure. Thank you. No, I think that is the most important point we normally debate nowadays. So it's simply the question. If you had asked me this 5 years or 10 years back, I would have said, no, people don't understand. And it's not about understanding, people don't care about frauds. I mean, if we go back 7-8 years or go back to Satyam era, when in 2000 the Satyam scandal broke out, we generally had not heard this word of frauds and corporate frauds and all those things. But in last 5 years, especially after all the forensic audits on large NPA defaults, which had led to significant prosecution from the government side, arrests from the government side. In fact, day before yesterday, another big scam broke out and the chairman of the company got arrested. So yes, now everyone is aware. Why are they aware? Because they're scared, because they see action happening on the ground. Earlier, we never saw action happening on ground, people getting arrested or someone investigating some companies. Generally, when it happened things on fraud, and it was always government areas. But now we see more and more private sector employees, management, directors, shareholders getting prosecuted, getting investigated. So that fear has forced companies to accept regulatory changes and work on this compliance so as to they can defend themselves in future if they're investigated. So yes, by that fear of arrest, by the fear of prosecution, the companies are now accepting these kind of changes and they are now asking questions. What is fraud? How do I protect myself? The most important question which we ask or which have been asked by the directors is, how do I protect myself? Because tomorrow, if any company is getting investigated, there's a high probability that I may be arrested. So how do I protect myself? So yes, that awareness is getting in, that knowledge is being shared, and people are now gearing up to defend themselves. So yes, the answer is yes.
And possibly, yeah, I think the stick has worked better than the carrots in the past. Carrots were like nice to have, please comply, be ethical, but then if just that didn't work. But I think that's also one very interesting thing that's happening in the country is today we are seeing law with teeth. we're actually seeing enforcement.
Absolutely.
It
So
was
in
very
fact,
unheard of. I mean, connections don't get you anywhere these days. I mean, you have to play by the law.
honestly don't get. So I have privy to several cases of enforcement directorate or CBI where, there are issues of corporate frauds or bribery. Absolutely no connections work. We see the law being taken as per the process, the evidence is being investigated as per the process, the prosecution is done. And in fact, the judges now do focus more on financial crime in a separate manner. They ask intelligent questions, not like a typical human body crime. So we see that kind of changes even in the judiciary. So that knowledge, that understanding, and that importance to the financial crime world has changed significantly, especially last 5 to 10 years.
And I think it's also very transformatory for the audit profession, because today you can actually stand up and say, look, you comply, otherwise this is what will happen to you. And I think it's a huge deterrence that's sort of got built in.
Absolutely. Auditors, I mean, we regularly interact with auditors. Auditors themselves are now worried because of whatever has happened, unfortunately, in a couple of cases in our country. The auditors are also getting pulled in. So they are now asking more difficult questions to the management to show the evidence, to show the substance that you have done everything right. So yes, even auditor is taking it very seriously, especially on frauds and bribery and all those elements.
Sure. So, and if I were to wrap up this question, I think the key single theme that emerges is compliance, governance, and fraud risk agendas will dominate senior management minds and boardrooms. And I think the audit profession really has to scale up to be absolutely sure of what we are doing in our true and fair, true and correct, or compliance management schemes. So thank you very much for this first set of answers, which were very, very good and to the point. Now let's move to the second question. If each of you had to describe the top 2-3 things on top of your mind as the big compliance changes that have happened in your sphere of activity, it could be very simple compliances, in the last few years. What would that be? I mean, and let me start with Praveenji on GST.
Basically, ma'am, although GST is right now a new taxation system prevailing in the country, to make it a digital economy and to make it the digital India, the e-way bill is being introduced. And after the e-way bill system, e-invoicing system is again the best system prevailing in the country. Major tax evaders are yet to digest that this type of system will prevail. And basically the agenda of the council meeting is that within a time span of 2 to 3 years, say 2025, we will introduce e-invoicing system to each and every entity. And basically in the practical scenario, the small and medium enterprises has to adopt how to adopt this kind of the new system like e-invoicing. You have to match with the system and generate any QR code or any IRN number. So it's basically a time consuming job. Basically, you can say the technical thing that small and medium enterprises to adopt this kind of system is very, very difficult in the tomorrow or day after tomorrow scenario. Next is the prosecution phases. Right now, above 5 crore limit, there is a limit of 5 crore of limit tax evaders that you have to be prosecuted in case you have fraudulent avail the ITC. In day before yesterday or the yesterday, in order to match or enhance this monetary limit, the government is interestingly taken the benefit or give the benefit to the citizen that this 5 crore limit increase or will be increased to 20 crores of limit. So government is considering and taking this kind of scenario, this kind of system that small and medium enterprises to adopt in a easily manner, like QRMP scheme is basically a good initiative. But somehow there is a system that you have to file quarterly returns. But when you are supplying B2B invoices, the supplier, the recipient says, I have not taken any credit. Supplier says, I have to file the quarterly return. So it's basically, again, the misconception between the supplier and the recipient, who has to file, quarterly file, monthly file, mix up of the scenario is there. But somehow the government has given the benefit that in case you have turnover less than or up to 5 crore rupees, then you will have to file the quarterly returns. And basically,
Yeah,
this is the practical scenario.
Yeah.
Indian economy is very, very big economy. Even the population is very huge. Mentality of the person is, again, thought of the person is different from one person to another person. Again, basically, the time is a time-consuming job, and we'll see in the future how these to be operate.
Thanks. And Sunilji, what are the top things about income tax that are slightly worrisome from a compliance perspective? You have to unmute, sir.
Hello.
Yes, sir. Please.
Audible now? Okay.
Yes. Yes.
So what you said, this carrot and stick approach, okay. But the question is now the carrots are not sweet, and stick has become a gun from government point of perspective. Let me give an example. Government has brought in a section 115BA for the new manufacturing company, where a concessional rate of 15% will be allowed to you. This is the new section for the manufacturing company, and that is applicable from the 1st October 2019. And if you do the manufacturing, start the manufacturing by 31st March 23. Now see the irony of this section. How the making compliance of such section is a very big problem, because the definition of manufacturing has not been given anywhere, whether processing is a manufacturing or not, whether conversion is a manufacturing or not. The deciding which activity is manufacturing and which is not, very difficult. Secondly, the same company has to pay taxes in the 3 bracket. 15% if you're doing manufacturing, 22% for any other income. The same company having another income, they have to pay 22%. And if the transactions are not at the arm's length price, you have to pay 30% tax. Same company, the 3 tax bracket. And even then the manufacturing, definition of manufacturing is not clear. Second example is section 68. You have widened the scope of section 68, unexplained credit. And to such an extent that everything now can be put in the purview of section 68 to 69. We see all the additions are being made in these two sections. And what is the tax rate? 78% plus interest. It's more than 100%. So making a compliance, to whom to comply with? If the law is so confusing, if the law is so strict. And secondly, you should prepare the India Inc. for that. And as Ilya said, all the blunt goes to the small and medium industry again. The government has to prepare themselves. Of course, auditors, chartered accountants, every consultant have to check what are the changes and how the compliance has to be made. It's like a preventive health checkup camp now. Now you have to go for the prevention. As Ajay said, every director, every promoter is now worried whether I am making some mistake, whether can I be fixed for any mistake. So prevention, making a prevention checkup camp or making a due diligence in hand, that's better. That's very important.
Sure, sir. So to Anilji, let me just play the devil's advocate. See, nobody makes a law or changes a law because they love the law. All laws, I think, are reactive. There is a certain level of misbehavior which triggers a new law. So in that context, I, for one, believe that, yes, if there are changes to the law, there is a story behind each of those changes and perhaps many stories. Do you agree with this statement? Do you think that the laws in this country need to keep evolving constantly? So today you've had this huge blow up on the cryptocurrency. Nobody sort of thought about it. In fact, I was speaking to somebody today and they said they actually electrically alter the weighing scale so that the payments are, sort of become skewed. And he says, we don't even know it. And the only way, and maybe Ajay can talk about it more, is you find a small spike at that point in time when the weighing scale has got, changed. So today there's an intense gaming of the laws. Do you feel So even today, if you look at the emergence of NAFRA and the kind of reviews we've been seeing across professions, do you think this new scaling, the higher scaling of laws is needed at all? Or do you think it's an overkill?
Yeah, Shri Priyaji, I think it has got two angles. One which you talked about the various scams and all these things happening, and the government always have a knee-jerk reactions to those, and accordingly acts are amended. But the positive side is that a lot of foreign investments are coming. India is a happening place so far as corporates are concerned. So a lot of new initiatives, changes in law has also happened for taking care of ease of doing business. You see, you must have seen that in our Companies Act itself, there's a very large number of sections which were, they have been decriminalized. And that is the idea. I mean, those are also amendments, but which are giving a positive signals to the corporates that we want you to perform, we want you to play here freely, but you have to comply. And then that's why wherever there is a non-compliance, there are penalties, and see all those, I would say penal provisions are now making harsher, but they are allowing the corporates to have free hand at so many other places. So amendments are happening from both angles. Some of them are knee-jerk reactions, and some of them are looking into the international phenomena, how industry, how commerce gets flourish in a particular area, and then bringing those amendments here. I mean, let's look at another very good example is startups. See how India is now being considered as the third largest startup ecosystem, because what they have done, what other countries have done, they have also allowed startups to have similar kind of benefits. So these amendments in various laws, acts has happened to give them these benefits which they were otherwise enjoying in other part of the world. So both sides.
Yes, and for example, the FCRA, I think it was a good idea to bring in administrative overheads down. What's the point in getting crores of money and then using it for an administrative or high eminence building in Mumbai? You're supposed to bring in money to benefit the society. So I think some of these I thought were very relevant and valid and much needed changes. And Raji, do you have any views on this? And do you think we're becoming an over-regulated regime, or you think the changes are justified?
Actually, me being the Vice Chairman in Direct Tax Committee, and recently we have introduced our guidance note on tax audit. So there are two changes in this time in the tax audit, our guidance note. First is rule clause 30C, general anti-avoidance rule. And the another one is clause 44, expenditure which are not registered under GST. So these two rules are very difficult to face by our professionals as well as the businessmen. So it is very difficult to face this type of changes. So this is the thing. Yeah.
Too quick. Okay. And Ajay, Ajay, for most of the people in the audience here today, I don't think we have much knowledge on the forensic space. So if you can just take a few minutes to, sort of tell us what this forensic is all about. So, because it's very important. So what are big heads? That will be very nice.
Sure. So let me give a kind of overview of what forensic, and I'll try to bring in some law element into that, because you're talking about regulations. So forensic is nothing but a science to investigate something. So what has happened is that in last 15 years, we have seen frauds taking very technical way, or taking very, a smart way, not typical, what do you call, theft or typical pilferage and those things which used to happen 15 years back. Nowadays, fraud are much more sophisticated. And if you don't have evidence which is rightly collected and presented to the judiciary for prosecution, then your case fails. So that's why even in the regular terminology, when people talk, like the Honorable Home Minister was talking about equipping our entire police force with forensic tools. What is it? It is basically preservation of right evidences and in a right manner so that it can be accepted as an evidence in the court of law. Simple example, under the Evidence Act, there is a process on how do you preserve a laptop. For example, a CFO has done a fraud of say X crores and the evidence lies in the laptop. So how do you do it? So you have a special process to preserve that evidence. That process is called as forensic. So you preserve the evidence, you process the evidence, and you analyze and investigate the evidence. This entire chain is called as forensic investigation. Once you go through this process, you come out with a report which says that these are the facts, these are the evidences, which are, by the way, preserved as per the process defined in the Indian Evidence Act. And then you present your report to the audience. The audience could be the RBI, or it could be the banks for the NPA cases. It could be the SEBI for the insider trading cases. It could be the SFIO when they're investigating a company. It could be CBI for the purpose of corruption issues. So that's how you do investigation and you present your report. What do you investigate? Typically, you investigate information which is the financial record or the electronic record. These are the two sets of information which is there. And the third set typically lies outside the market. So like any investigator, any spy would go outside the market, try to gather intelligence and all those things. So this entire process comes out as an investigation process, and that's how we do investigation. Why it has become more important? In 2013, when we amended our Companies Act, we had a very specific focus on fraud reporting, fraud definition. So in fact, our Act of 2013, Companies Act, very well defined fraud as a word. If someone goes and reads that definition, you'll see that almost every act, which is, it covers almost everything. I mean, we go through it every day. It covers any kind of misdeed, misgovernance with an intention to deceive someone. So it covers everything, and it is a criminal offense. So the Companies Act amended fraud and ensured that there is enough provision to prosecute private sector employees. Because it was not there. Earlier, it was Indian Penal Code, which was out for the general public. Now the Companies Act has made it private companies also, under the purview of investigation for fraudulent acts. It could be by the company, it could be on the company. That's what it is. And then, interestingly, one more thing which was done by the Companies Amendment Act is there was a concept of hotline which came, which is basically a reporting mechanism. What the Companies Act says that a specific class of company, which is about some limit, needs to have a reporting mechanism. And this reporting mechanism is open for everyone. Anyone can write a complaint that this is a fraud happening in the company and this is how I'm to do a whistleblower kind of thing. And you report it. And the latest amendment to the CARO now mandates that every company should disclose all these complaints to the auditor. Because earlier what used to happen is that auditor was kept in dark. The management never informed the auditor that I have received 50 complaints, I have received 100 complaints, and they used to hide it under the carpet. So that's how things have changed. Now, when it comes to forensic, now it is a requirement as per Companies Act. It is a requirement as per the SEBI listing obligation. It is a requirement as per the RBI regulation when there is an NPA classification. It is a requirement for any kind of debt restructuring. It is a requirement for international companies. So you have a lot of MNC companies in India, especially US companies. They are very strict on all this. They have two provisions. One is the SEC provision, one is the FCPA provision. And they are brutal when it comes to investigation, and the fines are significant. So these companies are now driving the change of culture in India. In fact, thanks to the MNC culture, the concept of ethics, the concept of governance has changed significantly. We see employees, especially CFOs, internal audit heads, compliance heads, now looking at forensic as an important element, and they do the investigations absolutely carefully because no one wants a situation that someone is arrested, someone is prosecuted. Anything can happen in today's situation. Like, I mean, we are right now investigating a very large company which had done a listing on the bourses, and the allegation is that significant amount of money was underplayed in that process. Now the allegation is in an email box. So you need to investigate that. And if something comes out as a negative, then it will have a havoc in the entire company. In fact, there could be prosecution by the SEBI, by the police, by the global investors. So, that impact is now becoming much more significant. So that's why when it comes to forensic, coming back to the main point, forensic is now essential. It is an important way of how you investigate financial crimes, ensure the evidences are protected, preserved correctly, so that, and normally now it's very common that the cases go to court. Earlier they used to not go to court. In today's situation, the number of cases which go to court have jumped manifold. So that's why again forensic plays important role. In fact, I have myself appeared in front of Bombay High Court and Delhi High Court, where we have given reports, and in fact we have been honored to be appreciated by Delhi High Court that the way we preserved evidences and presented, they were so happy about it. So that culture is changing, and that's why we see a lot of attention of even young CAs who want to make a career out of forensic investigations getting significant importance. So yeah, I think forensic investigation is there, and I believe next 20 years is there. This is the place where I see significant play happening, both at the regulatory side, both at the on the ground side, on the enforcement side. Everywhere we'll see a significant change happening in next 20 years. That's my take on it.
Sure, and that actually puts us into two important things. Now, one, I think nothing is too small to matter today. Even if it's a small whistleblower complaint, it needs to go through its track.
Yeah.
And the second is there is going to be a large demand for professionals. And I think even managements would want to be very aware of these aspects. To Anilji, I have a very specific question, and maybe you don't have the answer, but I was wondering, it's very recently that RBI said CFOs of banks have to be chartered accountants. And since if I'm a chartered accountant, I'm covered by the code of conduct, whether I'm in practice or not. Do you think it's time that even CFOs of listed entities, and the Companies Act has many, many thresholds, would having a chartered accountant at the helm of affairs, being a professional, improve the landscape in this country, the compliance landscape in this country? That's my first question. And should we really, and we are not wanting to create that role because we are ICI. We genuinely believe it's good for this country. So what are your views on this?
Yeah. See, I'll explain that to you with my experience. I was independent director in UCO Bank for 3 years, 2016 to 19. And see, I interact as an audit committee chairman. I interacted with a lot of bank seniors, as well as with my colleague on the board. You see, non-chartered accountant directors, as well as senior management, they may be smart. They may have expert in their particular area, maybe engineers or something like that. But to understand financial statements, to understand these data, they have definitely a deficiency there. They are not, up to the mark. And in fact, the very interesting topic, which is very common, which I take in IIC and all, is finance for non-finance. So there I meet a lot of, prospective directors and senior management, those who are not from commerce background, or they are not chartered accountants. So you can see a very vast difference. They don't understand the financial statement at all. Some of them are so poor, and they have been working, they have attained a particular height in their profession or in their life, where they are virtually managing the affairs. And I personally feel this is a handicap with them. So business, definitely technical side of business is definitely there, but it has a majority is playing with the financials. So there, this role of chartered accountants is definitely, there is a vast scope for that. And in fact, I personally feel that institute should look into this aspect, and maybe they should somehow train some of their senior members to fill this gap. Some of them have done very well. They are doing good in practice, but there's so much area in business. Look at another example can be these database for independent directors. Now look at there. So I was just discussing with someone in IICA, which is managing this data bank. So they were also worried about this. They said there are a very large number of persons who have registered with them, but their background, their knowledge about finances is very, very low. So they are not very sure that, and it is actually to all those corporates who are, they are clever and then they are dubious. They want these type of people to to be there in their board so that they don't create any hassle also. So from that point also, I would say that chartered accountants in the board plays very, very important role. Not only in the board, I think in senior management also, they have a very important role to play. That's why this RBI circular, which you are just mentioning, that CFO has to be a chartered accountant, is very, very appropriate.
Yes, sir. To Rajbhai, sir, I think there are 2-3 interesting changes that have happened. See, today it's a framework-based reporting, and the framework is actually growing and becoming more complicated. We have NDAS or AS, Schedule 3, which is becoming very, very difficult. And secondly, there's a huge explosion of digitization. So we're currently doing a project with MCA. We are trying to test the version 3 forms, and we understand that users generally tend to file something or the other, but all the data is now getting collated and matched or mismatched. Do you think, especially in the context of this digitization and this framework becoming more and more robust, CAs are even more necessary, Rajbhai? Are there any other reasons for this?
Yeah, definitely, Sripriya Ben. This is in this today's scenario. I met various senior chartered accountants who are facing this problem, that we are unable to cope up this gap due to this digitalization and this type of compliances which are coming in these days. And many chartered accountants have left their audits, that we are unable to report on these clauses. Like I said earlier, that in this our tax audit report, this clause 44, it is a very difficult. How you will report? Very difficult to report. And you cannot dependent on the management report. You have to check each and every expenditure, whether GST is paid or not. So very difficult, very difficult.
Sure. And just moving on to the next sort of theme is, how do you think organizations, so for example, is there a need for a chief compliance officer? Today the law has mandated internal auditors, the law has mandated statutory auditors, the law has mandated KMPs. But given this entire compliance landscape, which includes things like your visual mechanism, your fraud reporting, is it time to go back to those old times when you used to have a chief accountant, like a chief compliance officer? So any views on that? I mean, because the law only defines a KMP, doesn't, I think for the first time, there was a recent change in the MCA rules on maintenance of accounts in India. They said, even if you keep your accounts on a server abroad, you need to have it in India. And for the first time, I saw the name of a designated officer there who would be responsible for these accounts. So some of us would, of course, think it's very draconian, but then again, they must have had an issue there of somebody saying, what do you call it? You call it as the kill switch. You press the kill switch and all your accounts across the globe have just switched off to a regulator. So do you think it's time that, what would you suggest, Praveenji, for example, everything changing so much, do you think we need a chief compliance officer who, sort of have a mandated role only to do that?
It's good, ma'am. Your thought is very much, you can say, cope up with the changes in today's scenario. Likewise, the Ajay sir has said, the forensic, the fraud thing is going in much in detail. In GST also, likewise, C. Raj Chawla sir has said, how you will check whether your supplier has paid the taxes or not? How you will check whether the compliances has been done or not? Like compliances in the case of the labor laws, I think there are many organizations, big organizations for which you are auditing that companies, the PF compliances, the ESI compliances, the Factories Act, and many other acts for which I don't know. There are many other provisions also prevailing in this company. Although 35, 37 states, union territory have a different scenario. Each and every state is altogether a country. Many taxes prevailing in that particular states, like professional tax. Who will comply the professional tax? Likewise, I'm auditing one of the company having a turnover of 500 crores. They are there. Their branches are in Andhra. Their branches are in Maharashtra. So professional tax is there. You have to comply with the professional tax. You have to comply with the labor laws, the forensic treatment, or you can say there are major gaps in the recording of the fixed assets, major gap in the recording of the inventory. So the compliance officer is now a mandatory field right now, in addition to the CFO, or in addition to the senior finance officer. A compliance person, basically a different sector is being created nowadays, in addition to the forensic also. So compliances is must, and it must be done. It must not be avoided for any sort of the reason. We have to report in the CARO itself. So we have to report in the any other report also. So for which I don't know. There are many other compliances also we have to fulfill. And again, the compliance officer is right now a major contribution play in the company, in the corporate, and in the major turnover.
Sure. And Sunil, you're also an auditor. So what do you think, would be sort of the red flags for you? So let's talk about red flags for some time. So what do you think would alert you? I mean, for a bulk of this audience, which is also going to be practicing CAs, what is it that I must watch out for today, whether it's on the compliance side or on the fraud side?
It's for me.
Yes, sir. Anyone. I mean,
yes, sir. Please.
Please go ahead.
Anilji, could I request you? I mean, what would you?
Sure. You see, I think it's a very serious question. Let me, sometime when I discuss with my other friends, so they say it's in our profession also, it's a very political, have very far-reaching political implications. So nobody discussed this. Issue is that today, since we are not we are not making any distinction between small and medium and large companies or enterprises. So this has created a situation where a very large number of professionals, very specifically chartered accountants, are involved with the company, which are doing their all type of activities, audit as well as non-audit. And the latest, as the things are moving, I mean, regulator is very clear. They want to make a very clear distinction between audit and non-audit. I mean, at the moment, Section 144 talks about only few, but the new trend is, I mean, that things which you can see very near future is audit and non-audit. It's going to be clear distinction. Now, look at a small practitioner. What he does, right from the book writing to finalization of even signing the report, he's involved. And what he's trying to do, he's trying to escape that attention of the regulator by what the maximum he can do is that, okay, all the fees is being shown as auditor remuneration. But when something happens, when a person like Ajay Upadhyay ji comes in, then when those people are interviewed, they say everything has been done by our auditors. They know everything. So that's why they come to CA's offices. Because everybody says, I know nothing, everything has been done by them. So my point is, why this situation is there? Why can't we suggest some change in law where, see, these small businesses, it's a very controversial statement, but I would like to make that today, that why they require, all of them require audit. Why can't chartered accountants get involved into those small businesses only for compliances? Compliances also has got reasonably good fee structure. So this is creating a problem. If regulator wants, till the time they don't make a distinction between small and medium, and that all the provisions are applicable to across the professionals, then this issue will remain there. So it is better that allow chartered accountants to get involved with the company, no audit. And it is a trend. I mean, this is a practice world over. Now there are a number of companies where smaller companies do not require. It's a very, once again, very controversial. It may even affect me also. But that is a thing which we have to accept today. And compliances are, as rightly mentioned in the when we have discussed that, compliances are increasing. And if chartered accountants are helping small businesses to comply, to make, to ensure that those compliances are taken care of, that is a good contribution by them to the businesses. So, and then on the other side, when bigger businesses come, when where there's a public money is involved, there I fully agree that audit versus and non-audit should be very clearly demarcated, and that should be this activity should be banned for those who are doing audit. And I am very sure we earlier we discussed this, earlier we resolved this. Otherwise, regulators are definitely going to come to us with those provisions.
Sure, sir. Yeah. We are aware of this. There has been some attempt that says, the small and small companies especially may not need audits. And I do take your point. There is a large business advisory role that a chartered accountant can play there. But having said that, this is also a country where there is one large company from where funds are moved to many small companies. So by getting them out of the audit, it might not be, unless it's a very calibrated and a measured move, it may not be good for the country. And secondly, sir, the other challenge that comes in dispensing with audits, especially in a country like India, is that, that people file their annual returns only because the auditor is there. So, the tendency, but of course, now I'm told MCA is going to come out with these alerts. If you've not filed it, then you're going to get an alert after 7 days saying you've not filed. So they're also moving into compliance management system. But yes, sir, your point is well taken. But I also think the Corporate Laws Committee, the report this time which came out, spoke something about dispensation of conflicting services for small companies. So maybe we have some new thought that's emerging on that. But yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty, sort of open. Rajbhai, any views on this aspect on key auditor safeguards?
Yeah, very rightly said by Anil Sharma ji that this small companies should be excluded from the audit this system, because there are so many compliance, and even in this new Companies Act, there is a restriction that auditor cannot be the compliance officer. There are restrictions that he cannot give the management services to the company he is auditing. So it is very difficult. Rather, it should be the compilation of books should be there instead of this audit. Because in small company and medium company, the assessee always feels safe that my auditor is there, he will take care all the compliances. Whereas the compliances is so much that audit, and also again the same thing that they give very small amount of fees to the auditor. Then it is very difficult for auditor also to do the audit as well as all the compliances required under the various laws. So,
sure.
Yeah.
In fact, we moved a little bit away. We have a separate series only on auditors, which is going to happen, I think, the next week, next session of Manthan. But Ajay, tell me all this with your experience on forensic and things like that. First, of course, there's an impunity and I don't care attitude that drives it. But from an auditor's sense, in managing compliances and things like that, have we all become too structured, in our approach to say, I will see this, I will check for 1, 2, 3. have we somewhere lost this power of common sense and intuition? See, somebody gets 100 crore loan. He's sending it to 5 group companies, 10 crores each. I'm not getting any interest out of it. I'm not getting any dividend out of it. I'm not getting the loan back, and it's sitting as a dormant company or whatever in the balance sheet for many years. Is there something that the audit profession is sort of missing out? I'm not saying in all cases. Where have we missed something? And again, today, what was the bank again? Today, well, all fingers, people say auditors could have done better. The entire ecosystem, where do you think, what is that third eye or the sixth sense?
I can be brutally honest on this, ma'am, if you are fine with that.
No, I'm not fine with brutal honesty. Please, guarded honesty is fine. So
no, I mean, in my experience, there has unfortunately some auditors I have encountered in my experience.
Bankers, the rest of the ecosystem, everybody, the credit rating agencies. So
let's stick to the bank issue. I think somewhere the common sense test has not been applied. I am not saying whether intentionally applied or not applied, but I do see as a chartered accountant, if I see something, I know this is black, this is white, as a common sense. But when I look at from that perspective, certain cases I have seen in the banking industry, I agree with you. Those common sense principles have not been applied. That's an unfortunate situation. Somewhere, some colleagues or some bankers or some auditors have tend to focus more on safeguarding themselves under the concepts of management representation letters or getting comfort letters from the management and those things, and kind of not applying the common sense principle. I mean, if honestly we had applied the rules to certain transactions on a very strict basis or a very transparent basis, I believe there are situations where you can actually find certain issues which could have flagged off 5 years ago, 3 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever, without getting into specific cases. So yes, unfortunately, we see those common sense principles being failed. But yes, I do see other cases also where nowadays auditors are becoming much more stricter and applying common sense principles. They're asking questions, and especially where public money is involved, because now looking at what has happened in so many cases, be it big auditors, small auditors, everyone is kind of getting grinded into this situation. Now the auditors have become much more aware, not only in form, in substance also. They apply the common sense principle. They ask difficult questions. They just don't keep quiet. This is a letter saying that everything is hunky-dory, as they call. So they do go beyond the document. They go beyond the document. They question the intent of it. So yes, the things are changing. So yeah, I mean, on the positive side, the things are changing on that front.
Sure. And Rajbhai, what would you think are some good auditor safeguards? I mean,
very rightly said by Ajay Bhai that earlier we were dependent on if I have taken the MRL from the management, then I was thinking that I am safe. But I see in the board of discipline also that in many things the auditor has to apply his own mind. Even I was avoiding this. Even our chartered accountants who are supposed to take the NOC from the previous auditor, they are not taking. They are so careless. So you can see the level. You also face this type of issues in practical life, that there are so compliances which are written in the Chartered Accountant Act or Companies Act. But we are ignorant because we take the things very lightly or easily. But as told by Ajay Bhai, that now the chartered accountants, because there are various notices, issues coming from ED or CBI or some institute of chartered accountant, now the auditor is feel this type of issues. He feels that we should take the action. And even in our clause 44, which is in the tax audit, specific guidance are there that you should not dependent on MRL. If management is saying that these are the transactions under GST, then you should not be dependent on that. You have to apply your own mind and give the information which are required under that clause. So this is the thing.
Sure. And this is a very sort of soft question. how do you define professional ethics? Praveenji, I mean, from your perspective, because somehow I don't know. I go back to the fact that all of us in 3rd standard, 4th standard, 5th standard, the syllabus has changed even at the school level. There's no more moral instruction. I mean, I don't know whether Ajay did it. He's much younger. But somewhere along the line, there is personal ethics, there's professional ethics, and is it time to kind of think about it? What would be a few things about, personal and professional ethics? What is your take on that? I mean, anything specific that you'd like to say, Praveenji?
In today's scenario, as a professional, you have to follow the professional ethics prevailing. And in the personal level, your body language, your areas of working, your as a relation with your family, relation with your clients, and in both the perspective, ethics plays a major role. Likewise, I have kids. There is a subject called as a moral education. Likewise, we have, as a professional, we have some kind of ethics. We have to follow it in a disciplined manner, in a professional manner, so that our work would be in a right direction, in a simple direction, or the work has to be completed and to be done in an efficiently manner, so that none of the organization, any of the government, your family, your relation perspective can point on it that you have done this kind of mistake, you have done without a professional behavior. So again, in a simple terms, ethics plays a major role, and it will build your quality, it will build your discipline, it will again build your each and everything in your body perspective.
Thanks, Praveenji. So Sunil Gargi, should we trust and verify, or should we verify and then trust? We've always been told to trust and verify. So in the compliance and everything that we do, what's your view today?
So let me continue with what Praveenji was saying about the professional ethics. So it contains 2 words, profession and ethics. So first of all, we have to be professional. As Ajay Bhai said that whenever we are doing audit, we are compliance officer, for a small company particularly, we are the compliance officer, we are the auditor, we are the tax auditor, we are doing all the returns filing. So first of all, we have to define our professional limits. What is my professional limits for which work I have been appointed? And then comes the ethics. Ethics, of course, but the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India or any governing or any regulating body has said that you have to follow these ethical measures. So this is one part of the story. Secondly, you are rightly pointed out. Earlier it was trust, then verify. Now it's verify, then trust. You cannot depend on the management representation. Please understand. We were told when we were doing our CA that we are a watchdog, not a bloodhound. But the scenario has changed with the invention of ED, CBI, so many agencies. Now it's very difficult for auditor to cope up with the changing rules, and every time he is found guilty for nothing. So he has to verify first that what I have done is correct. Then he has to trust on the management representation. This is my view.
Sure, sir. Anilji, your views on this. I mean, how do we transform, or how do we maintain, assuming we're today at an acceptable level or the best level of integrity, how do we maintain it? I'm very scared to even think otherwise. So,
yeah, in fact, there is much to talk about theoretically, and in fact, more than much is to apply. The point is that this is an area where we have to look at that. Let's not see, first of all, there has to be some principles, basic principles in everybody's life. we can start with that we will do honest, we will be honest, we will not tell lies. These are small things which build your character first. And once the character is there, then professional, characterism always comes in. But then you are virtually, you come into that mold that yes, you can accept limitations. That your ethics are basically well accepted limits which you should not cross. So it depends on person to person, and definitely, since we are chartered accountants are in a particular profession where we are looked at as a highly qualified and highly unbiased kind of people. So we definitely have greater role to ensure that we are more ethical than any other else, at least as that is being perceived as such. So we have to work on it. There's a lot of lures and hurdles into it, which we have to take care of. I mean, sometimes we see that there are financial constraints. Somewhere, all those are those are attractions, which are bad attractions, which we have to really resist ourselves from those, and then go with a very well-defined way of not only life but working life also.
Yes,
so it's a more like a theoretical part of it, practically. And then another is, I think we should also always, when we talk about ethics, we should always look at some of the luminaries, some of the great personalities, how they have performed, and then those will definitely encourage us, will guide us how to really proceed further, to look at compliance of. Compliance is a bad word to use when we talk about ethics. It is more from your heart that you want to really comply those. So bringing compliances or bringing ethics through regulations is not a very good idea. I personally feel it has to come within, and only then there is going to be and a very interesting thing is it is very apparent. I mean, you can see from the person to person that whether he's a man of ethics or otherwise.
Yes, actually, I think I agree. See, I think today there are just two things to look at, two limbs. One is knowledge, the other is ethics. And then that's one box. And then you have diligence and negligence in another box. So, and then respect is the box that you don't want to compromise on. And unfortunately, what happens is if somebody makes a mistake, it's somebody has made a mistake. But if a chartered accountant makes a mistake, oh, it's the chartered accountant. So I think there's a huge, and today it's not that ICAI is an institution. Each one of us is becoming an institution, which is why I think whether it's a compliance failure or it's a fraud risk, I think we carry something much larger than just our individual presence. And Rajbhai, over to you for your comments.
You are right that being a professional, being a chartered accountant, the most responsibility lies on the auditor. And we, as Sunilji said, that professional and ethics. Being a professional, it is our responsibility to do the audit work or compliance work of the client diligently, efficiently, timely, and perfectly. And as far as this ethics is concerned, this also plays a very important role. Although, as Parveenji said, that this ethics lies in our personal life also, but as a professional, it is our responsibility that we should be true to our client, true to our assessee, because in this current scenario, when I visited branches and other business houses, they say that we only believe on chartered accountant. Our profession being strict, this ethical standards and other, this disciplinary mechanism our chartered accountants have very good reputation in the market, in these business houses, that chartered accountants are very much believable, that they take the responsibility in a very diligently manner. So this plays a very important role.
Sure. And Ajay, to your last set of, what do you think? Where are we failing? I mean, are we failing at all? So, and we, by me, I mean all the stakeholders, not just the professionals. So corporates. This cryptocurrency left all of us flummoxed. Look at these notices on Chinese companies. Open the paper and there's something new that's happening in the financial landscape. We've looked at large market failures. So
I think, are we failing? I wouldn't go that negative. I think, yes, we had faced hurdles in last couple of years. And honestly, we didn't have that kind of approach and vision and thought process that, ethics, compliance, and all those things were not that relevant to the initial business, because we were growing as an economy and, things were very basic for us. Now in today's situation, I mean, I interact a lot with my international counterparts, when big funds come into India for investment. The first question what they ask is that, how ethical is your business? Are you ethically complying? Are you good practices? Are you having good practices, good business ethics, and all those things? In fact, I have seen large deals, $1 billion deals getting cancelled only for small things like the company bribes someone. For us, unfortunately, bribe has not been that negative word till last 5 years. But if you go to any US company, you'll find that bribery is like, it's impossible for them to do business. Or a European company, those kind of things. So due to various reasons, we are seeing that culture change happening in our country when it comes to bribery, ethics, fraud, and all those things. And at the same time, due to the advent of technology, due to the advent of social media, due to the whistleblower mechanism, a lot of things are coming to limelight. It is not that the frauds were not there 10 years back. They were always there, but they were kind of hidden, kept quiet. No one talked about it, kept under the carpet and all those things. But thanks to the regulatory changes, thanks to the investors coming in and verifying the companies, these things are now stumbling out. It's like skeletons stumbling out, which is forcing us, everyone, to rethink the way we do our business. Like when we go, so 10 years back, I used to go and conduct training on anti-bribery. And I used to tell people that you should not pay bribes. So they used to laugh on me. They used to literally laugh on me. Said, what are you saying? You have to do business in India. I said, no, this is what the law says. And in fact, look at the vision. 2020, we amended our Prevention of Corruption Act. Now the Prevention of Corruption Act now directly pulls private individuals as the accused. Earlier, private individuals were never accused. Today, the private individuals are main accused in a corruption case. So things are changing. So somewhere I think we had our pitfalls, but I see a lot of changes happening in our governance structure in the next 10 years. And that is visible to us. And in fact, it is visible to international investors. In fact, yesterday I was with a German delegation which came from Berlin. They were looking to invest in India. They foresee India as the country which is going to lead us in the next decade. That's what their vision is, because they see enough amount of action happening on the ground. They see that the government is serious. They see the business are evolving, and they see we are taking importance of things on ethics and all those things. So yeah, I think whatever we had, that was unfortunate, but I think now we are on a track where we see businesses becoming more ethical, more and more ethical and transparent.
So thank you very, very much. And I think they're just about on time. So I think some of the key themes that emerged today is India, that is Bharat, will be the economic superpower of the future. Two, I think there's going to be a lot more compliance, whether it's in GST, whether it's in income tax, whether it's in FCRA, whether it's in PCA, anywhere, and we have to brace ourselves for a new compliance regime, especially as chartered accountants. The third thing is, I think this country is going on a hurling path of digital acceleration. Now, the IT will feed into GST, will feed into MCA, will feed into every other known database in this country. And you're looking at this government having a large red bus where all your economic transactions are tracked. So it's important that everybody is careful. I think digital acceleration, and 4, I think knowledge is the superpower. In fact, Rajbhai sends us knowledge updates every day. I wonder how he does it, and it's actually preceded by a very interesting and not red quote. I must also put on record that. So yeah, I think knowledge is the way to go. And in all this, I think professional skepticism for the audit profession will be the watchword. So on this note, I'd like to conclude this session. And the next A of the Manthan, MA, is going to be on audit profession as the cornerstone of trust and integrity. So we would largely discuss what are the challenges that are facing the audit profession today. What's the new set of laws that have come in on our reporting, etc. And we're also going to talk about this much needed phenomenon of audit fees. You're expected to be good, you're expected to be fast, and you're expected to be cheap. And in this, I'm told that the audit fees are amongst the lowest in India compared to the rest of the world, right across the spectrum, whether it's listed companies down to the last level. So how do we actually embolden our fraternity? And how do we believe that what we do is great, significant, and meaningful work that deserves its remuneration? So these are the things that we will debate and discourse in the next series of the Manthan. And thank you very, very much to one and all present here today, and look forward to meeting you in person. Thank you very much. And thanks, Rajji. Thanks, Anandji. Thanks, Ajay, for your time.
And
Sri
Priya, when one thing I just remembered, that I was reading the story of Shri Ratan Tata ji. In one story, he was discussing some business plan with his chartered accountants, and he gave some good input about that project. Then he asked whether this is legal. He said yes. And the second sentence was whether this is ethical. Then he said no. Then Mr. Ratan Tata told that I will not do this business. So this is the value of ethics.
Yes,
Thank
and
you.
to end on another note, there's a small difference between why do always chartered accountants, they say integrity?
Yeah.
Why are we not using the term honesty? Because I'm told integrity is one level higher than honesty.
Yes.
And it's from a Latin word integra that says what you think, what you speak, and what you do are supposed to be the same thing. And on this note, look forward to the next edition of Manthan. And of course, this will be hosted, so you could send it to people you know who might want to listen. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Thanks to Sarika for making this.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.